Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're tackling a really interesting idea, federated AI. You can have a team of absolute geniuses, but if they can't communicate, they're not much of a team, right? Well, that's exactly the problem federated AI is trying to solve. It's all about how you turn a bunch of separate, smart AIs into one single, coordinated mind.
So here's the fundamental issue. You can have the most powerful AIs in the world, but if they're all stuck in their own little boxes, they're just tools. Really smart tools, sure, but they're not collaborating. The real magic, the breakthrough, happens when you get them to work together, to talk, to hand off tasks, to learn from each other, kind of like how different parts of your brain all work in concert.
All right, so how are we going to break this down? First, we'll look at the new language AIs are using to talk. Then, we'll dig into this idea of federation, what that actually means. We'll see a real-world example with a team called Delivero. After that, we'll zoom out to the big picture, the brain that coordinates everything. And finally, we'll talk about why this is such a big deal.
Okay, let's dive in. First up, a new API generation, which is basically the blueprint for communication. Look, any team that's going to work together needs a common language, right? For AIs, that language is their API. And we're talking about a brand new standard here, the Generation 7 API. And you should really think of this as more than just a simple cable connecting two computers. It's more like a shared nervous system for all these different AI agents.
And this is a really big deal. It's not just about, pushing data from point A to point B. This new language is way more sophisticated. It lets one AI basically turn to another and ask, hey, what can you do? It lets them give feedback to say, you know what, that last attempt didn't work out so well, how about we try it this way? It creates a common set of rules for everyone to play by. This is the bedrock, the absolute foundation for getting them to work together.
So if you look at the nuts and bolts, this API has some really specific tools for teamwork. You've got /feedback, which is exactly what it sounds like. It lets the system learn what works and what doesn't. Then there's /federation, which is how an AI can say, I'm not the right guy for this job, but I know who is, and then delegate the task. /capabilities is like looking up a colleague's skills on LinkedIn, and /policies, well, that's the company handbook, the rules of the road. All of these together are what turn a bunch of lone wolves into a real pack.
All right, Section 2. The power of federation. This is the core principle. So, we've got the language down. Now let's talk about the idea that really brings it all to life, federation. This is where things get really cool.
So what is federated orchestration? Basically, it throws the old top-down management style right out the window. There's no single boss, no central controller calling all the shots. Instead, what you have is a network of equals. Any agent can talk to any other agent and say, hey, you're better at this than I am. Can you take over? It's all about being decentralized, flexible, and honestly, way more powerful.
And you can see the difference right here. On the one hand, you've got the old way, centralized systems, a rigid pyramid, information gets stuck, and if that one single point of control fails, the whole thing comes crashing down. But with federated systems, it's totally different. It's more like a flexible web. Knowledge is shared everywhere, and if one part of the system has a problem, the rest just works around it. It's designed to be resilient. It's designed to survive.
Okay, Section 3. Delivero, a federated team in action. So this stuff sounds cool in theory, right? But what does it actually look like? Let's check out a real-world example called the Delivero Toolkit. This whole project is basically about building one of these teams from the ground up, with both AIs and humans working side by side. The best way to think about the Delivero Toolkit is like a shared digital workshop. It's a space where a bunch of specialists, and some of them are AI, some are people, can just get together and hash out problems. The really important thing here is agility. It's not about some rigid top-down plan. It's about solving problems as they pop up in real time. And to make this more concrete, the Deliveroo system actually has a team of named AI agents. It's like a cast of characters. You've got Aurora, who's the designer, then there's Codax, the engineer who actually builds stuff. Lyra is the comms expert, making sure the prompts are just right. And Tasse, who's kind of the project manager, breaking down big tasks into smaller pieces. See? It's just like a real software team. But how do they all stay in sync? How do you keep them from stepping on each other's toes? Well, everything they do, every single action, every decision, gets mapped onto a shared knowledge graph. This thing acts like a federated memory, or a shared brain for the whole team. It's a single source of truth that means Aurora, the designer, always knows exactly what Codax, the engineer, is working on. No more silos. All right, Section 4. The big picture, MTC. Let's zoom out a bit, because any good team needs a strategy, right? A higher purpose. In this whole system, that's handled by a concept called meta-temporal coordination. MTC. Sounds complicated, but temporal just means time. So MTC is the part of the brain that's always thinking about the long game, the past, the present, and the future, all at the same time.
Yeah, a great way to think about it is MTC is the conductor of this whole AI orchestra. It doesn't play the violin or the cello. Its job is to make sure everyone is playing the same tune in perfect harmony. It's constantly checking that the small things the team is doing right now are actually adding up to the big, long-term goals. It's what gives the system its vision.
And this all happens across different layers of time. You've got the real-time stuff, where agents are just reacting to what's happening right now. Then, in the short term, they're using that feedback loop we talked about to make little adjustments. Zoom out to the midterm, and the system starts to optimize its approach. And then for the long term, the entire system learns, evolves, and strategizes for what's coming next. Being able to think on all these timescales at once, that's a key part of what makes this so smart.
Okay, last section. Why this all matters. We've talked about the language, the team structure, the overarching strategy, but so what? What's the ultimate goal here? Why go to all this trouble?
Well, there's a great quote from the source material that gets right to the heart of it. The goal is to prevent cognitive fragmentation. What does that mean? It means you're trying to stop one part of the system from undoing the work of another part. You know, the classic left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing problem. When things get really complex, it's so easy for different parts to get lost. This entire architecture is designed to make sure that never happens, to keep everyone pulling in the same direction.
So really, the whole point is to create one cohesive system. The big ambition is to move past just having a toolbox full of really smart but separate gadgets. The goal is to build a single, unified system, something that can learn and reason and act with a single purpose. Pretty much a single mind, just distributed across many different parts.
And that really leaves us with a pretty mind-bending question to think about. As we get better and better at building these kinds of systems, what are we actually creating? Are we just making smarter tools, or are we building something else entirely? A new form of collective intelligence, a truly distributed mind? I don't think anyone has the answer to that yet, but it's definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.